Hey everybody, I'm back to make another video. So last week I made a video on Lipo batteries for model airplanes and how I got so many charges without having any problems. And then I did a follow-up video about how to do maintenance on your Lipos. And I got a lot of questions, and basically I got 4 here I'm going to address and try to do this under 20 minutes. Now, if you don't know who I am, I love giant scale airplanes, especially if they're electric, and that's all I fly now is electric. And my obsession is with stuff it's got to be more than 150 inches or it just doesn't turn me on. So what I want to do is jump into this first question real quick and just get this going. I've got a young lady. Well, she's 24. To me, that's young, and we've been emailing a lot about radio control aircraft for the last year. She's starting to get into electric, and she sent me a link to a big argument on RC groups about chargers and stuff. And what's really funny is this bloviating fool, and I hate to call people names, but this person is absolutely in orbit being wrong. Basically said that your chargers have only one purpose, and that's to charge your batteries. You should never use them for anything else. Well, read your manuals and see what your charger is capable of doing. Because my iChargers, my 3010Bs, they actually have some cool things they do that have nothing to do with charging batteries. One of them is that if you have a brushed motor, the 2-wire motor brushed, and you want to break it in, it's got a motor setting for breaking in motors. Also, another cool thing is it can become a power supply for a hot wire, for doing hot wire cutting styrofoam like wings and fuselages. So just read your manual. Your charger is probably capable of doing a little bit more than you know until you read the manual. The next one is, if your charger will balance your batteries when you're charging your batteries, why do you need some of these little testers that also have a balancer? Well, the thing is that if you're at the flying field flying and you're charging all the time and you need to balance some other batteries a little bit, this is really nice to plug in and just hit balance, and it brings all the cells completely even. Now, what most people don't realize is the higher the capacity of the battery, the more that the charge balance will go out. I mean, more of the balance will go out when it's depleted, when you run the battery down. Your charger will do the best when it's balancing, while it's charging to balance it, but it doesn't get them all exactly perfect, because what will happen is sometimes it will stop charging before it forces some of them to get to 4.2 volts. It might be that those cells can't get to 4.2 volts just because they're tired or they're older or there's something going on in your battery. That's one reason balanced charging is so safe and you don't have fires with it. But if you throw one of these on that battery when you're done and it balances them exactly, which means if you got a 4.2, a 4.19, a 4.18, it will bring them all down to 4.18. That little bit of difference won't matter in your flight. But that's the reason I have these, is because I love to throw them on batteries that are out of balance a little bit after I've charged them or I'm charging other batteries. The next one's on internal resistance. And I want to tell you how internal resistance almost caused me to lose an aircraft by not checking it. But then I'll tell you how to check your internal resistance. So if you follow me for a long time, like I say, I like to build big airplanes. I have an airplane called the MSL-1. It was my first giant scale electric, which was 197 inches, had about a 9 horsepower electric motor on it. And I had flown it about 300 times before one winter when I put the batteries up for the winter. And honestly, I wasn't putting those batteries at a true hibernation. I was taking them down, making sure they were 3.9 volts, which nowadays I take them to 3.85 or 3.8 volts. But that shouldn't have made a difference, okay? I'm just telling you, make sure you put your batteries in storage. And I kind of digress there. But I went to the flying field, first flying of the year, got my airplane out, charged up the batteries. All of them showed that they held full charges, 4.2, 4.19. They were all fully charged. Stuck it in my airplane, taxied it out, brought up the power, and I could tell the moment it went to full power, it wasn't like it normally is. It took a while to get the tail up, and I thought, okay, my batteries are getting old. And I knew they were old. The batteries were almost 4 years old, or maybe 5 years old by then. So I get the airplane in the air. I turn into the crosswind. I'm only about 75 feet in the air, and my engine just quits. So I cycled the throttle real quick, and the motor came back up, and I knew instantly it was my low voltage cutoff. My batteries were so bad that they were dropping below, and I had my low voltage at the time set at 3.9 volts, which was dumb, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I cycled it, and it was about probably 75 yards away from me. You could hear a couple of gasps behind me because everybody knew the plane was in trouble. And out in front of us, about 100 yards, was a row of farm equipment. And I had no place to go except into the farm equipment. I wasn't going to stall the airplane. I will always fly my airplanes to the crash. I will never stall the airplane. I don't know if it's God or the aviation karma gods or if my fake pilot in my airplane grabbed my controls. But my airplane landed, went through the equipment, came out the other side, and it was rolling. And we're like, what happened? We ran over there. There had been a piece of farm equipment moved to help cut the grass. So I landed right between those with a foot on each side of the wing. We measured. Absolute total luck. But I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell happened to my airplane? I did bend the landing gear on landing. It was a rough landing. So we roll the airplane back over. I checked all my voltage, they were good. And one of my really good nerd friends walked up and says, man, I watched that. You almost lost your airplane, Dag. And I said, yeah, I don't know what happened. I said, the low voltage cutoff went in. He goes, what's your internal resistance? And I said, what's internal resistance? He's like, you don't check the internal resistance on your batteries? I said, what the hell? Now keep in mind, everybody, I do these videos to share my experiences with you so you can learn. I'm not an expert. I'm not a know-it-all. I've just done electric since 2006, and I've been in the hobby since the late 70s or mid-70s. So we bring the plane over, and he says, do you got one of the little meters that checks your balance? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, let's plug it into your battery and run up your power. So with the batteries in my airplane, I plugged it into the balance tap. And I'm sitting there looking, and I saw like 4.12, 4.13. Keep in mind, I took off and pulled some of the power out of the battery. So I'm watching this, and we go to full power. Now, 3 of us are holding the airplane. I'm holding this. Nobody's near that big 32-inch propeller, okay? We run it up. Everything went to 3.8 volts. And then the low voltage cutoff started, kicking in and out. And I'm like, whoa. He says, dude, your batteries are done. They're toast. And I'm like, I've only got like 340 flights on it. And everybody starts laughing. They go, dude, nobody gets 340 flights on Lipo batteries. So we went over to his charger. He plugged my battery in, and my internal resistance was in the 30s and 40s. So it might have been a little bit higher. I keep thinking it was in the 40 to 50s, but I can't find any of my notes that back that up. So that's the reason internal resistance is important. Now look, if you've got a little battery like this and your internal resistance is really, really high, and you just got a park flyer or a powered glider, you may run this battery until it won't hold any juice at all. As long as the cells are balanced, it shouldn't hurt your charger. So now, how do you check internal resistance? Take the manual out on your charger. I almost guarantee you your charger has a setting to check internal resistance. Okay, I'm telling you, any quality charger that I've ever seen, you can check internal resistance. So look at your manual. If you don't have it, go to YouTube and go to the flight test people. They've got a neat video on how to do it manually. You basically take a watt meter, put like a 100 watt load on it, and you do a little bit of math, and you can check it that way. But there is the other way you can check it that I started doing a little bit, and that's where I'll put this on the battery, put a heavy load on the battery, and see how much the voltage drops. So if each cell is 4.2 volts, and you go under full power, and they drop to like 4.17 or 4.15 and stay there during the 2 or 3 minutes you're testing, you still have very low internal resistance. But if you hammer it, and it goes from 4.2 to like 3.9 or 3.98 or even probably 4.0, that's too much voltage dropping. Like I said, that battery is probably fine in your park flyer or your little foamy or a small airplane that you don't need that big amperage on. But like this Potenza, which by the way, I said in my other videos, I love this Potenza battery. This only flies in my EDF or my giant scale airplane. So probably around 250 to 275 flights, this internal resistance will get too high to be useful in my EDF or my giant scale airplane. So that's internal resistance. Look at your manual. You probably have it and you don't even know it. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on, and it also touches on what I just talked about. When does a battery get tired? When do you need to, dispose of it? What do you do with your batteries when the internal resistance starts getting higher? If you have followed me for the last 10 years, I like to blow stuff up and test stuff to see just what it's made of or how it behaves. I love to make carbon fiber propellers myself. Well, I have a motor test stand that I test these on. A lot of times when a battery, the internal resistance gets too high for flying, I'll take it to my test cell where I do all my testing, and I have a pile of batteries in there that I use just for testing. Sometimes I will intentionally try to blow up batteries. I never videotaped this because I was afraid somebody would do it themselves and maybe burn down their house, okay? But the more I'm thinking about it, I'm going to start doing some destructive testing of Lipos to kind of educate everybody. So hopefully over here you'll see some picture or videos of some of the batteries that I've done testing on. But this is a 6-cell battery right here, and the whole top's been opened up so you can see all of the what I call power tabs. And a power tab is a lithium polymer battery has 2 tabs coming out of it. One's positive, one negative. When you stack them side by side, reversing them, that's how you create your series circuit, like a 5 S batteries as 5 cells in series circuits. So I have dropped Lipos from 10 feet onto this end because there's no tabs, there's no nothing. I've crushed this in and never had a fire, never had anything go wrong with the battery. I have crushed the battery on its sides, and unless you puncture it and touch the cells together, I've never been able to get a fire that way. You drop it this way with all these balance taps and a little piece of tape or something gets cut in there and they short across each other, then you get some sparks and fire, okay? And you'll see it over here or over here. I've always also taken regular batteries and run them under massive loads through like light bulbs or motors or whatever, almost dead shorting it. And then I took and dead shorted them and got them to really puff up. Now, I'm not saying you should ever experiment like I have. I'm just trying to educate you on what I've learned with lithium polymers, because I've used so many batteries that when they get at the end of their life, I like to see if I can really truly get them to catch on fire, because everybody in the world says that their hand grenade's ready to go off. Okay, there is a guy out there that is hell-bent on saying that you should never ever put a lithium polymer ever in an airplane because no matter what, it's going to blow up. He's hell-bent on this. He wants everybody to be flying A123s in their airplanes, which are heavy and is not the right application if you are intelligent enough to know how to use lithium polymer batteries. So the ultimate test on these that I've done is where I take a piece of 10 gauge wire, put it through a light switch, set this in my fire pit, flip the switch and dead short the battery fully charged. Most of the time, one of these little tabs will melt. I mean, it will smoke and you'll hear it make noises, but these tabs will melt pretty quick. Or the solder that attaches either your positive or negative to the battery will get so hot that the solder melts and it comes loose. If that doesn't happen, then the battery does burst into flames, turns green and blue. It's really pretty. Do it at nighttime. I wouldn't smell the smoke because it's probably toxic. But that's pretty much it, everybody, for this video. I just want everybody to understand that your charger most likely can check your internal resistance. Okay, if not, go to the flight test and watch their video on how to do the math and do the load testing. But if you really just want to kind of know if your battery's healthy, put it under load while watching the cells and see how much they dip. And lastly, one thing. This is all my bad batteries now. So I mentioned my video the other day, what happens when you want to get rid of your battery and you want to drain it all the way. I want to show you how I actually drain mine. This is a watt meter right here. So if I plug this into my battery, it will give me a reading. And right now it says this battery, oh, this battery is at storage. I was wondering, why is it showing such low volts? So right now I'm at 22.96 volts. I'm going to plug in my 120 watt, 40 watt bulb. And you can see it barely turning red, but you can't see it from over there. It is pulling 0.14 amps at 3 watts. If you were to plug this lamp directly into your old battery and set it in your fire pit for 2 days, it will be completely drained. If you want to do a draining of a series of batteries, just take all your old batteries, connect them in a series circuit, plug this in. You'll probably get up to, I don't know, 10 or 15, maybe 20 watts. Let it sit in your fire pit for 2 days, and they're all completely dead. Okay? So I hope you find these informative, everybody. And once again, I'm trying to share my experiences with you. I am not saying I'm a professor at this. I'm not saying I'm a scientist at this. I'm not saying I'm a genius at this. I'm sharing the path I've taken to hopefully help you not make some of the quite honestly stupid mistakes I made. Keep in mind, when I first got into electric, I was pretty ignorant about electric. Okay, I went from flying a little indoor foamy plane to jumping into a Park Zone F4, which I still have. That plane's got almost 1,500 flights. And then I jumped into my giant scale airplanes. For the first 2 years I flew, I never balanced a single battery. And I was charging a battery one day, and there's some really hot spots in it. I'm like, what's going on? So I called one of my nerd friends. He says, Damon, put your meter on and tell me what the different cells are. I had one cell at 4.2 and another cell at like 3.9. That's how much out of balance they got. Never balanced charging the batteries. So from that point on, I started balancing them all the time. That's probably the reason I got 350 flights out of these packs right here. But I wasn't checking my internal resistance, so I didn't know the batteries were slowly getting tired. So I hope this helps you, everybody. And gosh, I think that's it. The next video is transitioning from small electrics to large, giant electrics like I fly. And the video after that is then somebody asked me to do a video on, is it really worth learning all the 3D stuff to draw 3D and design for model aircraft? Is the amount of time it takes really worth it, and the amount of time you save when drawing or designing something by hand, like 2D or pencil and paper? So that's the next 2 videos, everybody. So rock on. Have an awesome day. I hope you enjoy my videos. One last thing. Share this video. If you're an electric flyer, share this video. I have so many people reach out to me and say, hey, I found your video. It's awesome. I wish I would have known you were around. And they found the video like 4 months later. So do me a favor. Share this if you're an electric flyer. If you are a person who flies the large gas engines, I don't know why you're watching this. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe and take care.